Hey y'all, it's Ashley Bookishrealm. Welcome back to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome if you're new. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this video because clearly this is going to be, I don't know if this is gonna be a long one, but I feel like this one's gonna take me like a month of Sundays to actually go through and edit. So there's always that. But as you can see from the title of this video, we're here to start this end of the year content, which I know some people really enjoy. This is the time of year where you get to see the best stuff, what people's goals are for the following year, what releases we're looking at for the following year. So all these extra goodies when it comes to end of the year content. So I am here today to look at some 2023 releases. Now, you can see from the title that this list has 30 plus releases. This is only for the month of January. I was thinking about doing a new release list and doing it quarterly, so covering January, February, March. However, after discussing it with some people, I think that I'm gonna have to do this monthly. So I actually have a very specific list that I'm using on the back end of some stuff that I do for work, which is creating a more lengthy list than what I anticipated. Now, am I going to get to every single book that I put on these lists? No, these are books that I've come across, that I've seen, and that I'm interested in reading. So, like I said, it's over 30. I think it's about 38 titles. And what I am going to do is I'm just going to tell you the title, and I'm literally going to give you a 1 or 2 line synopsis. I am not going to spend all day taking 5 minutes to talk about each and every book, because with 30 plus books, it's going to be a lot of time, and I want to do this as rapid fire as possible. And so, like I said, all of these books come out in January. I went through the list week by week, so it's 5 weeks worth of releases in January, since it's 31 days, so it's 5, and that 31st day falls on a Tuesday. It's 5 weeks of releases, so that's how we came up with so much. Just so you know, my lists are going to cross a wide variety of genres as well as a wide variety of age categories. You'll see picture books on here, middle grade stuff, YA stuff, adult stuff. It's a little bit of something for everybody, just because I kind of read all over the place, so naturally my lists are going to be indicative of my reading taste. So let's go ahead and jump into this. The first one that I have on this list is An American Story by Kwame Alexander. This is a picture book, and it is the story of American slavery through the voice of a teacher trying to educate her class. Next, I have Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This is a romance. It's about a quirky content creator and a clean-cut athlete attempting to survive the outdoors together. Next, I have We Are Here by Tammy Charles. This is another picture book that celebrates the rich history of Black and brown men and women throughout history. Next is Sincerely Cicely by Tamika Burgess. This is it's a book about a Black Panamanian fashionista who learns to use her voice. Next, we have a YA book that is Rebel of Fire and Night. This is by Anissa Marufu, and it's about a 16-year-old by the name of Khadijah who flees her home in a hot air balloon because she's trying to escape an arranged marriage. Next, I have Spare, which is by Prince Harry. Not much really to describe about this one except it's autobiographical. I'm hoping that we get a lot of tea in this book, but who knows? I think it's just going to be an interesting follow-up to all the conversations that have been surrounding Harry and Meghan and their life with the British royals. The next one I have on this list is a picture book, and it's called The Kindness Read. This explores the power of friendship and kindness. Next, I have The Daughters of Isdihar, which is an Egyptian-inspired fantasy about 2 young women who fight for the rights of women using elemental magic. I think I probably worded that weird, but basically they are advocates for the rights of women, and they do this by using elemental magic. That probably makes more sense. The next one is also another picture book, but I honestly, like, there are always amazing picture books that are releasing, and I never really get the opportunity to cover them, so I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to cover them. This one is by Carol Boston Weatherford, who is one of my favorite picture book authors. It's called You Are My Pride, and it is told from the perspective of Mother Africa as she addresses her offspring of all colors and all corners of the earth, so the entire African diaspora. The next I have on my list is an adult horror, and it is A Nightmare Man by J.H. Marquette. This is a horror that illustrates the fine line between humanity and monstrosity. Next is a YA retelling, and it's called The Wicked Ones by Robin Benway. This is a Cinderella retelling through the eyes of the evil stepsisters. Friday, I'm in Love by Cameron Garrett, who I'm interested in. I've read one of their books, and I thought that I would check this one out because it focuses on a main character who, instead of a sweet 16, wants a coming out party, and the cover is absolutely beautiful. The next one is The Survivalist by Kashana Cawley. This is supposed to be kind of like a comedy humor. It is about a single black lawyer who moves in with her boyfriend, who has a roommate that is a doomsday prepper. So I'm sure there's a lot that comes with that. Next is another YA title. This is Cool Awkward Black. It's an anthology on Black geekdom. It includes people like Tracy Deonn, Kaylin Barron, and Leah Johnson. Next is The Mitford Sisters by Marie Benedict. I read The Personal Librarian this year and really actually enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. So I've been wanting to read more of Marie Benedict's work. And so I saw that there's a new one that was releasing, which is The Mitford Sisters. And it's a novel of history's most notorious sisters, one of whom will have to choose between her country and her family. Next, I have Figure It Out, Henry Weldon. It's a middle grade book about school and family while also handling a learning disability. Next one is Decent People. This is by Deshawn Winslow. This is a novel about a black community that's kind of reeling from a triple homicide and the secrets that the killings reveal. The next one I have is Independence, and this is by Chitra Dika Rooney, and it's a story of India's independence from the perspective of 3 sisters. Now this next one has probably one of my favorite covers that I've seen so far for their 2023 release for a lot of different reasons, and it's called Cookie Monsters. It's by Erica Kendrick. This is a middle grade about a young girl who wants to be the top cookie seller in her Scouts program. She's also trying to navigate the loss of her mother at the same time. That cover, y'all, is just, that cover is life. That cover means everything to me, like I said, for a lot of different reasons. Next, I have As You Walk On By Julian Winters. Yes, if you start singing Don't You Forget About Me, As You Walk On By, Will You Call My Name? Trust me, every time I see that title, that's the only thing I can think of is As You Walk On By. Yeah, that's all I can think of. So the main character in this one is dared by his best friend to do a proposal for his crush at a party. It completely goes wrong. He decides to hide out in a room that's in the same house, and while he's hiding out, different students begin to come in and out, and they also are trying to escape the people that they're supposed to be on the other side of the door. So at the party, everyone pretty much has a facade, and I don't know why my eye is itching. My eye's on fire. But it is kind of one of those situations where he probably feels like he's the only one that's awkward and that doesn't 100% fit in, where meanwhile everyone has kind of those same feelings, which I think it's going to be interesting to read something like that. The next one I have is This Is Not a Personal Statement, and this is by Tracy Badua. It's a story about a character that gets rejected from her dream college, and this is 16-year-old Filipino-American Perla Perez. So she decides to forge her own acceptance and commits to living a lie at university. I think just so many things are going to go left with this one, and I'm excited to see exactly how it goes left. Next is World Made of Glass by Amy Polonsky. This takes place in 1987 during the AIDS epidemic after AZT is released as the first drug to treat it. The main character loses her dad to AIDS and spends the course of the novel advocating for people who do have AIDS and breaking stereotypes associated with individuals that do have AIDS. Next is a picture book, and it is Abuela Super Quepa. This is a bilingual picture book about a young boy who learns to accept the fact that his abuela needs to retire her superhero cape. It's one of those that I believe deals with death and bereavement, so it's going to be kind of hard-hitting. The next one is A Lost Year, of a survival story of Ukrainian famine by Catherine Marsh. This is a middle grade historical fiction. It is a middle grade survival story about Holodomor, a terrible famine that devastated Soviet Ukraine in the 1930s. looking forward to that one because I'm all about books that cover little pieces of history that we don't often get traditionally in secondary education. Then I have Hands by Tori Maldonado. I read a Tori Maldonado book this year and thought it was okay, but this one seems kind of interesting. It's a middle grade book about a young boy who takes up boxing to protect his family from his stepfather. This one is another YA book. It's Spice Road by Maya Ibrahim. It's the first book in an epic fantasy series set in Arabian-inspired land with secret spice magic, and a 16-year-old must fight to save her brother. The thing that really caught my attention, one, was the cover of it, and that it's a magic system based on spices. Don't think I've come across that before, so that it made me very, very interested. The next is The Many Fortunes of Maya. This is about a young girl who uses Wheel of Fortunes for guidance on the toughest questions. Essentially, she has to learn how to determine her own fate instead of depending upon these wheels of fortune that she's created. The next one is The Buried and the Bound by Rochelle Hassan. This is a contemporary fantasy about monsters, magic, and wicked fae. Then we have a nonfiction title that I'm excited for, and this is The Pornography Wars. It is by Kelsey Burke. It's a big look at pornography in all of its facets, including historical, religious, and cultural. The description on this, like the full description on this one, is extremely fascinating. So I would highly recommend looking this one up to get a further explanation, because when I read it in detail, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to read that one. And oh, it's going to be great. Same thing with this next one that I have coming up, which I've learned a lot about what happened in Waco, but this is called Waco, David Koresh, The Branch of the Davidians and a Legacy of Rage. I've heard so much about what happened at Waco. Anytime that I've read books that center cults or watched documentaries that center cults, Waco typically does come up. So I know a little bit about Waco, but the fact that this is a whole book that's dedicated to Waco and it's the definitive account of the disastrous siege at Branch Davidson compound in Waco, Texas. Like, if you're into cults, this is one to check out. The next one is A Minus Club by Kekla Magoon. It's a contemporary YA novel about the bonds between a group of teens whose lives get upended by tragedy. Next is Call and Response. It's stories about the lives of ordinary families in contemporary Botswana as they navigate relationships, traditions, and caretaking. Next, I have another picture book, which is Plantanos Go With Everything. It's a vibrant and cheerful ode to Plantanos, the star of Dominican cuisine, which I'm loving. So many picture books that are coming out that are celebrating not only just diversity and what we think about racially and ethnically, but also with food culture, because with kids that's such a huge thing, like going to school and eating food that's different than the traditional like sandwich, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I really appreciate that there's more stuff like this coming out for kids to be exposed to and be seen in. Next, I have The Black Queen. This is about a student by the name of Nova Albright, who is supposed to be the first Black homecoming queen at Levet High, but she's dead. And I think that you should just leave it at that, and that cover should be enough to pull you in. I have another middle grade book. This is middle grade fantasy. It's Black Flowers Bloom by Ronald L. Smith. I read my first Ronald L. Smith book this year, and I did enjoy it. There were a couple little things about it that I was like, but overall, I did enjoy Hoodoo. So when I found out that he was coming out with another one, although he has an extensive backlist, but this one sounded really interesting. It's an African-inspired fantasy in which a Black girl finds her power and saves her people from evil. This is another YA title. It's The Promised Boys by Nick Brooks. This is a YA mystery about 3 teen boys of color who must investigate their principal's death so that they can clear their own name. I know that Nick Brooks came out with a middle grade book this year, and they've really been heavily pushing the release of his YA book. I do have a copy of this one already, so hopefully we'll get it read at some point this month so that so I'm prepared for release date. The next one is River Sing Me Home, and this is the story of a mother's gripping journey across the Caribbean to find her children in the aftermath of slavery. So I know that one's going to be probably a very difficult book to read, not just for racial purposes, but as a mother. And I couldn't imagine being forcefully torn apart from my own child. And so I know that's going to be a huge emotional one for me. And the last one that I have on this list is Jumpin' by Shraddha Strickland. It's a joyful picture book celebrating community that grows from Double Dutch, which I grew up jumping rope when I would go stay with my family in Long Island, New York. That's all we did, Amityville specifically. We would jump rope, and my cousins always tried to teach me how to double dutch, y'all, and I could not double dutch to save my life. So shout out to the kids who know how to double dutch. I know the movements, but I could never jump in. Like, I could never get the timing right to jump in and double dutch. So there's that. All right, y'all. So those are 30 plus new releases that I am anticipating coming out in January of next year. Like I said, I wanted to do this as like, at first I was like, oh, I could do 6 months. And I was like, no, I can't. Then I was like, oh, I could do this quarterly. And then when I started making my list just for January, I was like, oh, sis, you can't even do that. Like, what are you thinking? So along with every other like staple video that I've started coming out with, that I want to drop at least once a month, this is another one that I am hopefully going to drop once a month for you all to be able to see some new releases that I kind of have my eyes on for the upcoming month. If you like this video and if you think that this is a good idea, please let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notification. Looking for ways to support the channel, links to my Patreon, Amazon wishlist, all that stuff is down in the description box below, as well as my links to social media. As always, I will be back with another video soon, and be looking for some more of this end of the year content, y'all. It's about that time to start wrapping things up, and yeah, and seeing where life is gonna take us in 2023. Hopefully fucking better than 2022. All right, y'all.